It was a normal day in the galaxy, a chaotic one, but a normal one. The war raged on, with battles between humans and alien forces taking place in distant corners of space. Captain Alex Morgan, a young human soldier, found himself on yet another routine mission. His squad was assigned to patrol a remote planet, one that hadn't seen much action, but Alex knew better than to let his guard down. The planet, a barren wasteland of dust and cracked earth, offered no comforts. The only thing in sight was the endless expanse of rocky terrain and the occasional wreckage from past battles. Alex and his team moved quietly through the landscape, always on alert, but something felt different today. He couldn't shake the strange feeling that something was watching him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the air around them rippled. A strange hum filled the air, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Alex froze, his senses on high alert. "Everyone, stay sharp," he barked, reaching for his weapon. Then he saw her. In the distance, through the dust storm that suddenly kicked up, a figure appeared. At first, Alex thought it was a mirage. The figure was unlike anything he'd ever seen. An alien, but not like the usual ones they encountered in battle. This one was strange, grotesque even. Her skin was pale and mottled with strange patterns. Her eyes, glowing with an eerie light, pierced through the haze. But what stood out most was her appearance. Her features were jagged and deformed, and her body seemed a twisted version of what one would expect an alien to look like. She wasn't beautiful. In fact, she was often called the ugliest alien in the galaxy. Alex's heart raced as he instinctively reached for his blaster. His squad members whispered nervously, unsure of what to do. They were soldiers, trained to fight. But this was different. They had never encountered anything like this before. The alien girl, as bizarre as she looked, didn't make any aggressive moves. She simply stood there, her gaze locked onto Alex as if she knew him. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The wind howled, the planet trembled, and Alex's mind raced. What is she? What does she want? To his surprise, the alien girl spoke in perfect English. Her voice was cold, but not unfriendly. "You," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You are the one." Alex blinked, unsure if he was hearing things. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. The alien girl didn't answer right away. She stepped forward, her movements slow and deliberate. Her gaze never left Alex. Then, without warning, she pointed directly at him. "You are the one I choose." Alex was taken aback. "I don't understand," he muttered, his hand still gripping his weapon, ready for anything. The alien girl didn't respond immediately. Instead, a strange energy filled the air. Alex felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Before he could react, the ground beneath his feet cracked open, and a burst of energy shot out, narrowly missing his squad. The blast was powerful, and the shockwave sent them all stumbling back. The alien girl's eyes glowed brighter now, and she spoke with an air of finality. "This war, you will be part of it. A choice must be made." Alex stared at her in disbelief. He didn't know it then, but this moment would change everything. The soldier who had always fought for humanity's survival now stood at the edge of something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. Something far more dangerous and much more mysterious. But before he could respond, the alien girl was gone, leaving nothing but the eerie hum of her presence lingering in the air. The encounter had just begun. The days following the encounter were filled with confusion. Alex couldn't shake the image of the alien girl, her glowing eyes, her strange appearance, and most of all, her words. "You are the one I choose." The entire squad was on edge, discussing the mysterious figure they had encountered. They all felt uneasy, but Alex, despite his hesitation, couldn't help but feel an inexplicable pull toward her. After the strange encounter, their mission was suddenly abandoned. Command didn't want them staying on the planet any longer than necessary, so they were ordered to leave. But Alex couldn't let go of the feeling that the alien girl had something important to tell him. Something no one else would understand. He couldn't explain why, but it felt like his destiny was now tied to hers. One night, when his squad was fast asleep, Alex made a decision. He silently left the camp, walking into the desolate wasteland, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on the cracked earth beneath his boots. His heart pounded in his chest as he made his way to the spot where he had last seen her, the alien girl. What if it's a trap? He thought, but that thought was quickly dismissed. He had to know what she wanted. As he reached the location, he felt it again, the strange energy in the air. It was like the planet itself was alive, pulsing with a strange, otherworldly power. And then, just as he had hoped, there she was. She was waiting for him. Alex could barely make out her form in the darkness, but her eyes, those glowing, penetrating eyes, were unmistakable. She stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful despite her odd alien form. "You came," she said, her voice as cold and mysterious as before. Alex swallowed hard. I had to know," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "What do you want from me? Why me?" The alien girl studied him, her glowing eyes flickering in the dim light. "I chose you because you are different," she said, her voice low and filled with a strange intensity. "Your people, your species has something that the others do not. You have the power to change the course of this war." Alex frowned, still unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean? How can I help?" She stepped closer, her face inches from his, and Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "You will help because I need you," she said softly. "There is something you must do. A task that will determine the future of your galaxy." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, but before Alex could respond, something unexpected happened. A low rumble vibrated through the ground, and suddenly, a blast of energy shot through the sky, illuminating the horizon. The ground beneath them cracked open, and Alex could feel the shockwave reverberate through his body. "What the hell is that?" Alex shouted, instinctively reaching for his weapon. The alien girl's eyes flashed brighter as she stepped back, her face showing no sign of fear. "It is not your enemy, human," she said, her voice calm. "But it is a sign, a warning." Alex looked at her in confusion. A warning for what? Before she could answer, a loud roar echoed in the distance. The sound was chilling, like nothing he had ever heard before. His eyes widened in realization. Something was coming. And that's when he made his first mistake. He didn't ask enough questions. He didn't demand more answers. Instead, Alex placed his trust in the alien girl, believing that whatever she had planned was the right course of action. He thought she was there to help him, to guide him in the right direction. But he didn't realize that her mission, and her choice, might lead him down a path from which there would be no return. The alien girl stepped back, her eyes still glowing as the roar grew louder, closer. "It's time," she said, almost in a whisper. With no time to think, Alex followed her, making the mistake of trusting someone he barely knew, someone who was as mysterious and dangerous as the war itself. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of his journey into a galaxy far more complex and deadly than he could ever have imagined. The days after the strange encounter with the alien girl were a blur. Alex could not shake the feeling that his life had been turned upside down. He had made the decision to trust her. No, to follow her. And now there was no turning back. She had promised him answers, but those answers were few and far between. Her words were cryptic, her actions mysterious, and everything about her seemed to lead him into a darker, more dangerous world than he had ever imagined. As they traveled together, Alex found himself constantly questioning everything. The alien girl, whom he still didn't know the name of, was unlike any being he had ever met. Her power was undeniable. She moved with a grace that seemed unnatural, and whenever they encountered danger, her strange abilities, whether it was manipulating the environment or bending the very air around them, saved them time and time again. But each time she used her power, Alex felt a growing sense of unease. There was something about her abilities that felt unnatural, as if they were a force beyond control. They made their way through barren planets and war-torn sectors, where the fighting never stopped. But despite the chaos around them, the alien girl remained calm, composed, almost detached from the suffering that surrounded her. Alex tried to understand her, but every time he asked questions about who she really was, she would dodge the answers. One evening, as they sat near the wreckage of a destroyed spaceship, Alex couldn't hold his curiosity any longer. He turned to her and asked the question that had been eating at him for days. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "What's your real goal? What do you want from me?" The alien girl's glowing eyes flickered as she slowly turned her gaze toward him. There was a long pause, and for the first time, Alex saw something like hesitation in her expression. She took a deep breath, and her voice, though calm, held a note of deep sorrow. "You don't understand, human," she began. "The galaxy is not what you think it is. There are forces in motion that are beyond your comprehension, forces that have been controlling the fate of your people for millennia." Alex's brows furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? Who's controlling us?" Her gaze grew distant, and for a moment, Alex thought she was lost in thought, lost in some memory. Then, with a deep sigh, she continued. "You know about the war," she said, "the humans against the aliens. But there is a hidden war, one that no one has ever seen. It's a war that's been fought in the shadows, and your people, they're nothing but pawns in a much larger game." Alex's heart began to race. A larger game. What does that mean? The alien girl stood up and walked a few steps away, her body radiating a soft, eerie glow. "I was once like you," she said, her voice now filled with bitterness. "A soldier, fighting in a war I didn't fully understand. But then I learned the truth about my people, the truth about the galaxy." Alex stood up, unable to look away from her. "Your people? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" She turned back to him, her eyes intense and almost full of regret. "I am not what you think I am. I am not just some ugly alien warrior. I am one of the last of my kind, a species once feared and revered across the galaxy. My people were destroyed because we stood in the way of the ones who control everything, the ones who are pulling the strings of the war you fight in." Alex's mind was racing. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was unraveling. He had never heard of an alien species like hers. No one had. And yet here she was, standing before him, claiming to be a key part of something much bigger. "But why are you helping me? Why me?" he asked again. She stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with something close to sadness. "Because you are the one who can stop it. You are the one who has the power to change everything. You are the key to defeating them." Alex took a step back. His mind was in turmoil. This alien girl, who was she really? And why was he the one she believed could make a difference? There were too many questions, and not enough answers. But one thing was clear. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy, about the war, and about his place in it, had just been turned upside down. The alien girl reached out and touched his arm lightly. "I know this is a lot to take in, but you must understand, there is a much bigger war at stake now. And you, Alex Morgan, are part of it." The weight of her words hung in the air, and Alex couldn't deny the sense of responsibility that was suddenly pressing on his shoulders. He had made a choice when he decided to trust her. Now he was starting to realize that this choice might not have been his at all. With a deep breath, Alex nodded. "I don't fully understand it yet, but I'll follow you. I'll fight with you. Whatever this is, I'll see it through." The alien girl gave him a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Good. The hardest part is yet to come." As they stood together in the fading light of the war-torn planet, Alex knew that whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The truth about the galaxy, and his place in it, had only just begun to unfold. And Alex's first mistake had been the most important one, trusting her. But now, he had no choice but to follow her into the unknown. The journey had only just begun, but Alex already felt the weight of the choices he had made pressing heavily on him. He followed the alien girl, who he still knew so little about, deeper into the chaos of the galaxy. Their path led them to uncharted worlds, ravaged by war and ruled by unknown forces. They encountered desolate cities, empty ruins, and broken societies, all victims of the endless battles between alien species and the fractured human factions. Yet, despite the devastation around them, Alex couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. The alien girl, who had been so mysterious, kept revealing more pieces of her past, but only when she felt it was absolutely necessary. Her eyes, cold and calculating, spoke volumes, yet she never fully opened up to him. She never fully explained why she had chosen him. But that all changed when they arrived at a planet Alex had never heard of. Draken, a once thriving hub of trade and technology, now a war-torn wasteland, where the galaxy's most dangerous factions gathered. It was on this planet that everything took a darker turn. Alex's instincts told him they were walking into a trap, but he had no choice. The alien girl had led them here, and she seemed almost eager. "Why are we here?" Alex asked as they walked through the ruins of the old city, his hand tightly gripping his blaster. "I thought we were headed for the resistance base." The alien girl turned her glowing eyes toward him, her voice low and steady. "We are. But this place holds the answers you need." The moment she spoke, the ground beneath them trembled. The sky above crackled with energy, and Alex could feel a shift in the air, a feeling of dread, like something enormous was about to happen. His hand instinctively went to his sidearm, ready for whatever might come next. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the distance. Alex squinted, trying to make out what it was, but before he could focus, a massive explosion erupted just ahead of them. The shockwave sent him crashing to the ground, and the air was filled with dust and debris. Coughing, Alex scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. Through the smoke, he saw a figure emerging, a massive armored soldier, glowing with an eerie blue light, and flanked by several other dark, intimidating figures. The alien girl remained perfectly still, unshaken by the explosion or the approaching threat. "It's time," she said softly, as if she had been expecting this moment all along. Alex's stomach twisted into knots. "Who are they?" he demanded, his voice tense. "They are the Ascendants," the alien girl replied with an eerie calmness. "The true enemy, the ones who control everything from the shadows." Alex could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Ascendants. He had never heard of them. Were they the ones behind the war? The galaxy-wide conflict that had torn everything apart. The lead Ascendant soldier, towering and nearly 7 feet tall, raised his weapon, a massive energy cannon that crackled with deadly power. His eyes glowed an unnatural blue as he looked down at Alex and the alien girl. "You should not have come here," the Ascendant's voice boomed, deep and filled with a strange authority. "This is not your fight." The alien girl stepped forward, her posture stiff and resolute. "It is my fight. It is our fight," she said, her voice echoing in the tense silence. "You thought you could control everything, hide in the shadows, and play with the fates of billions. But no more. The game is over." Alex could feel the tension in the air crackling as if the planet itself was holding its breath. This was the moment everything changed. The Ascendant's eyes flickered, a hint of recognition flashing in them. "So, it's true. You survived," he said, his voice low and filled with contempt. "I see you've brought a human to the table. How quaint." The alien girl's lips curled into a thin, almost bitter smile. "This human is the key, the one who will destroy everything you've built." The Ascendant soldier laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You really believe that? You think he can stop us?" Without warning, the Ascendant raised his weapon, and the air around them hummed with energy. Alex's heart skipped a beat. There was no time to think, no time to prepare. It was happening. They were under attack. The alien girl moved faster than Alex could blink. With a flick of her hand, the energy from the Ascendant's cannon exploded harmlessly into the sky, and the alien girl advanced, her form surrounded by a strange, glowing aura. "What are you?" Alex started to ask, but before he could finish, the ground beneath them shook violently. More Ascendants appeared from the shadows, surrounding them. "We're outnumbered," Alex said, his mind racing. "How are we going to get out of this?" But the alien girl didn't seem worried. She stood tall, unwavering, her eyes locked onto the Ascendant leader. "You think you can control me. You think you can break me. I am the last of my kind, and I will bring you down, all of you." Alex watched, wide-eyed, as she unleashed a wave of energy so powerful that it sent the Ascendants scattering in all directions. But even as they retreated, Alex knew something deep inside him had shifted. This was no ordinary enemy. The Ascendants were far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. And the alien girl, for all her power, was still at the center of this battle, a battle that would soon involve Alex more than he had ever prepared for. The ground shook again, and the air crackled with tension. In that moment, Alex knew he had stepped into a war much larger than anything he had ever dreamed of. And this fight, this battle, would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire galaxy. The battle raged on around them, explosions rocking the planet's surface and shaking the very foundations of the once thriving city. The Ascendants had retreated momentarily, but it was clear that they weren't done. They were regrouping, preparing for a counterattack, and Alex knew that time was running out. He had barely caught his breath when the alien girl's voice sliced through the chaos. "We need to move," she said, her tone cold and commanding. She was already several paces ahead, her eyes scanning the horizon, sharp as ever. Alex, still disoriented from the blast and the sheer intensity of the battle, struggled to keep up with her pace. His heart raced. He had only just begun to process everything that had happened. The alien girl's cryptic words, the sudden appearance of the Ascendants, and now the realization that this conflict was far deeper than he had ever imagined. What did that Ascendant mean when he said, "You survived"? "What's going on?" Alex asked, trying to keep up with her, his voice filled with urgency. The alien girl didn't answer immediately. She was focused, calculating every step with precision. They ducked into a narrow alley, barely avoiding a barrage of laser fire that whipped through the air, scorching the earth behind them. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now, but still filled with a sense of grave seriousness. "I wasn't always like this," she began, her eyes distant. "I was once one of them, one of the Ascendants, but they betrayed me." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He stopped dead in his tracks, the words crashing through his mind. She was one of them. "You were an Ascendant." She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Yes, but not by choice. The Ascendants didn't choose us. We were created. A weapon, nothing more." Alex blinked, trying to grasp the enormity of what she was saying. "Created? How? Why?" "There are things you don't understand yet, Alex," she said, her eyes narrowing. "The Ascendants are not what they seem. They were formed by an ancient force, a secret organization that has been manipulating events across the galaxy for millennia. They were the ones who started the war. They were the ones who decided your people would fight for their own gain." Alex's blood ran cold. The war he had fought in, the endless battles that had torn apart families and civilizations, were all part of a plan that had been set in motion by an unseen enemy. The Ascendants were the ones controlling it all. "So you were a part of that? You helped them?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. She turned her head sharply to look at him, her eyes filled with something deeper, regret, guilt, maybe even anger. "I didn't know." At first, I didn't know what they were doing, what they were turning me into. They manipulated my mind, twisted my very essence. But then, I found out the truth. She took a deep breath, and Alex could see the pain in her eyes. They created us, Alex. They took pieces of different alien species, mixed them together, and used advanced technology to turn us into something inhuman, something that would obey their every command. I wasn't born. I was made. Alex didn't know what to say. He had heard of genetic manipulation, of experiments gone wrong, but nothing like this. He couldn't imagine the kind of suffering she must have gone through. How did you escape? The alien girl's face hardened. It wasn't easy. I fought against them for years, but they are relentless. The Ascendants are powerful, and they control everything from the shadows. But I found a way out. I destroyed their control over me. I broke free, but they've been hunting me ever since. Alex's mind was spinning. The person standing before him, the one he had trusted, had once been a tool of the very enemies they were now fighting. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized something else. This was a person who had chosen to defy her creators, to break free from the very fate they had written for her. She was more than just an alien. She was a survivor. She was a warrior in her own right. But why me? Alex asked again, his voice steady despite the swirling emotions inside him. Why did you choose me to help you? The alien girl hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her words. Finally, she spoke. Because I was once human, Alex. I know what it's like to be caught in a war you don't understand, to be used as a pawn. You remind me of who I was before they changed me. You are the one who can stop them. You have the strength they fear. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The weight of her words settled on him like a heavy cloak. The Ascendants had control over everything, and they had used people like the alien girl to further their own agenda. But Alex, he was different. He was human, and that made him a threat to their entire plan. Where do we go from here? Alex asked, his voice resolute. He knew that there was no going back now. The galaxy was in chaos, and the only way forward was to fight. But the real question was, who was he fighting for? The alien girl looked at him with an unreadable expression, her eyes filled with something that was both powerful and tragic. We need to find the heart of the Ascendant's power. We need to destroy it. Only then will this war end. Alex nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They were no longer just soldiers fighting for their people. They were now fighting to stop a force that had been pulling the strings of the galaxy for centuries. And Alex realized, for the first time, that he wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for the very future of the galaxy itself. But as they prepared to move forward, a voice echoed through the ruins, sending a wave of dread through Alex's chest. We know you're here. It was the Ascendants, and they were coming for them. The voice echoed through the ruins again, sending a chill down Alex's spine. We know you're here. The words were cold, filled with unshakable certainty. Alex's heart hammered in his chest as he instinctively reached for his weapon. The Ascendants were closing in, and they weren't giving up without a fight. The alien girl's gaze hardened. We need to move. Now. Without hesitation, she turned, leading the way through the maze of crumbled buildings and smoke-filled streets. Alex followed her, his mind racing. He couldn't afford to waste time wondering if they'd escape. He had to focus on surviving, on getting out alive. They ran swiftly, their footsteps echoing against the debris-strewn ground, each of them aware of the looming danger closing in from all sides. The distant sound of boots on the cracked pavement behind them told Alex that the Ascendants weren't far behind. The air was thick with tension, and he could almost hear the heavy breathing of his pursuers, the sound of their energy weapons charging. They had to be prepared for anything. As they turned a corner, the alien girl stopped suddenly, holding up her hand. Alex halted right behind her, barely able to catch his breath. We're almost out of their reach, she said quietly. But I need you to understand something. Alex looked at her, his face filled with confusion. "What are you talking about?" She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "The Ascendants, they're not just a military force. They are more than that. They're connected to something much larger than you can imagine." Alex's chest tightened at her words. He didn't have time for cryptic statements. "What do you mean? What are they really after?" Her expression darkened, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "The Ascendants are trying to create a new order, a new galaxy where they control everything. They manipulate not just armies, but entire civilizations, and they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal." Alex swallowed hard, his mind spinning. So all of this, the war, the destruction, it's all because of them. They've been pulling the strings this entire time. She nodded. "Yes, and they've been using you, your people, as pawns in their game. You, your soldiers, your entire species, they've been manipulating your every move. Your victories, your losses, they've all been part of their plan." His heart raced as the weight of her words settled on him. Everything he had fought for, every mission he had been a part of, it had all been orchestrated. He had been fighting for the wrong side, the wrong cause, for reasons he hadn't even understood. The truth was devastating, but it also gave him a sense of purpose. If he could stop the Ascendants, if he could find a way to destroy their grip on the galaxy, maybe, just maybe, he could change everything. "Where do we go now?" he asked, his voice steadier now, despite the chaos swirling around them. The alien girl pointed toward a distant building, its crumbling silhouette barely visible in the fading light. "We need to reach the hidden base. It's the only place where we can gain the advantage over them." She began moving again, and Alex followed, his footsteps echoing in time with hers. As they neared the building, they were met with a wall of thick smoke and the distant hum of Ascendant technology. They had to be careful. The Ascendants were relentless. They wouldn't let them escape so easily. As they neared the entrance to the hidden base, a shrill whistling sound filled the air. Alex glanced up, his eyes widening in realization. A barrage of energy blasts shot from the sky, streaking toward their location. "Down!" the alien girl shouted, pushing him to the ground. The explosion was deafening. The ground shook beneath them as debris rained down. For a split second, Alex felt a crushing weight on his chest as the force of the blast knocked the air out of him. He barely managed to push himself to his feet, coughing from the dust that swirled around him. The alien girl was already up, her eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't wait for him to catch up. Instead, she moved faster, pulling him along through the smoke and dust into the ruins of the base. As they entered the dilapidated structure, the atmosphere changed. The air was heavy with secrets, and the walls seemed to hum with a low, eerie energy. The alien girl's expression was focused, every step deliberate. She led Alex down narrow corridors and into a small, dimly lit room filled with ancient technology. A wall of screens blinked to life as they entered, revealing maps, encrypted data, and strange symbols that Alex couldn't begin to understand. "This is it," she said, her voice low and urgent. "This is where we can finally strike back." Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. They were close, so close to uncovering the truth, to ending this war once and for all. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he worked quickly. The room around them seemed to slow down. He could feel the heat of the battle as the two powerful figures clashed before him. The Ascendant and the alien girl were locked in an epic struggle, a whirlwind of energy, fury, and power. Every blow exchanged sent tremors through the ground. Alex could barely keep his footing, but he forced his mind to focus. "Almost there," he muttered under his breath. The panel flickered, and a new set of commands appeared. It looked like a self-destruct sequence, a last-ditch effort to shut down whatever power the Ascendants had built here. He activated the sequence, and immediately, a loud alarm blared throughout the room, the lights flashing red. The Ascendant's head whipped around, his eyes widening in realization. "No, you can't." But it was too late. The alien girl's energy flared even brighter as she met the Ascendant in a final explosive clash. The power between them was unbearable. Blinding light, unbearable force. Everything around them seemed to bend and twist with the sheer magnitude of their struggle. Alex didn't wait for the impact. He turned and ran, bolting for the exit. His mind raced, focusing on only one thing: survival. The base was collapsing, and he didn't know how much time they had before it was too late. Behind him, the explosion was deafening. The entire structure seemed to implode on itself, sending shockwaves through the city. Dust and debris filled the air. But Alex didn't stop. He had to keep moving. He had to get out before it was all over. Through the chaos, he could hear the alien girl's voice echoing in his mind. "We're not finished yet, Alex. This isn't over. We've only just begun." He reached the surface, barely making it out of the collapsing structure. His lungs burned with each breath, but he didn't dare slow down. The entire city was coming apart, and he had no idea if the alien girl had survived. He hoped, he prayed that she had. She had to have. But then, through the dust, he saw her. Standing tall, unaffected by the destruction around her, the alien girl emerged from the rubble. Her eyes met his, filled with an intensity that said it all. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. "We did it," she said, her voice hoarse but resolute. Alex nodded, his heart still racing. "We did, but there's more to be done. The Ascendants won't give up that easily." "No," she agreed, a fierce fire igniting in her eyes. "But now, they know that they can't control us anymore. The war isn't over, Alex, but we've made the first move." The distant sky above them flickered with the remnants of the explosion, signaling the collapse of the Ascendant's hidden base. It was a victory, but Alex knew there would be no easy peace. The galaxy still hung in the balance, and the true fight was just beginning. But for the first time since this whole journey began, Alex felt a spark of hope. Together, they could change the galaxy. Together, they could fight back. And they would.